Good evening. Welcome to the City of Sugar Land City Council meeting for Tuesday, July the 25th. Aren't y'all thrilled I'm down here and y'all are up there? Don't be fooled. At this time, I'm going to ask Stuart Jacobson to come down and lead us. Oh, no, you shouldn't do that, Mike. Lead us in the invocation. And then if you'll introduce the scouts to us, they'll lead us in the pledge to the nation's flag and the pledge to the Texas flag. Stuart.
Thank you, Mayor. As we gather here today, we invoke the spirit of collaboration and collective responsibility. In this moment, let us set aside personal agendas and focus on the greater good of our city and its residents. With open hearts and open minds, we seek wisdom and guidance to make informed decisions that will shape the future of our community. May our discussions be marked by respect, empathy, and a genuine desire to serve those we represent. Let us remember that we are stewards of progress, entrusted with the task of fostering a city that thrives in harmony and inclusivity. May our actions today reflect the values of fairness, justice, and equality, ensuring that all voices are heard and considered. With gratitude for the trust placed in us, let us commence this council meeting with a shared commitment to serve the best interests of our city and its residents. May our efforts today be guided by compassion, integrity, and a vision of a brighter future for all. Amen. Thank you. Would Scoutmaster of Troop 992, would Scoutmaster Key Wang, Logan Morton, Ahmad Merchant, Emmanuel Wang, and Matt Bourgeois please come forward? These young men and that grown man there. Did I miss anyone? From New Territory, Troop 992. And they're going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the U.S. flag and then to the Texas flag. Who is going to handle the U.S. flag, the pledge? Go ahead.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Well done. Thank you, guys. Great work. Yeah. You got nice stuff for this. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Sir, thank you for being here today.
All right, we're going to move to item number 2, which is public comment. Anybody that wants to comment on one of the agenda items that is not a public hearing, and we don't have any tonight. So if you'd like to comment on one of the agenda items, please come down to the podium, identify your name and your address and the item you'd like to speak on, and you'll be given 3 minutes.
No one submitted written comments.
Nobody? Okay. Second call. Move on to item number 3, consent agenda. All the items on the consent agenda, and there's only 2, are going to be taken by one motion unless a council member wants to pull it. At that time, we'll take that one item. Do I have a motion? Motion approved. Got a motion by Kermally. Do I have a second? Second. Got a second by Ferguson. Vote at this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, council members. Item number 4, contracts and agreements. 4A, consideration of an action on authorization of a professional services contract with KSA Engineers, Inc. in the amount of $1,429,248.52, and authorization of a budget amendment in the amount of $243,248.52 from the Parallel Taxiway Relocation and Hangars ALD number 4 and ALD number 11 project, CIP AP 1201, for the Runway Rehabilitation Design Project, CIP AP 2301. We have with us tonight Mitch Davies, our Interim Director of Aviation. Mitch.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Council and City Manager. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. I know that was a mouthful. I appreciate that. All right, there we go. Okay, well, I'm very excited to present this contract to you all tonight. It's been a couple years in the making. We've been working hard on this. As you're aware, we only have one runway at the airport, runway 1735. It is a concrete runway that was built in 1985, and it is just reached full life. Part of our master plan was to look more thoroughly at the runway condition due to its age. And we did that. We completed it in 2021. One of the biggest challenges that we have with this is because we only have one runway, it's very difficult to repair it without closing the airport. Based on the 2021 evaluation, the results, the data, the engineers recommended that we have a major runway pavement rehabilitation project. I do want to kind of point out, and just to make sure that we're all on the same page, the runway's safe. We have a tremendous team at the airport, our airport operations and our maintenance teams that inspect the runway multiple times a day. They fix any issues they find, but we do have to plan for the future and look at our aging infrastructure. So that's what we're doing here tonight. So taking a look at this project, a little bit of a background, our number one goal has been to be innovative and strategic on finding a solution, a permanent solution that fixes this runway by meeting all of this criteria. And that presented us with quite a few options to consider. And we had to look at the different pros and cons with that. And looking at the project location, obviously the main area in green is our runway 1735. I do want to point out the runway safety area just to the edge of the runway highlighted in blue. We do plan on implementing some improvements as part of this project to what we say the RSA, which is an area surrounding a runway that is a safety boundary. So the area that's free and clear of any objects, it's graded, and what it does is it protects an aircraft in the event of an excursion during a landing or a takeoff. So if it goes off the side of the pavement, it's got a nice area suitable for that aircraft. Our RSA is not in compliance with the FAA current design standards, which is why we've been doing the taxiway relocation project. And so if you look on that picture over there, with the completion of the final taxiway phase, which is currently underway, with the improvements to the runway, with the improvements to the RSA, we will be 100% compliant with the current FAA design standards, which we're very excited for. It's an initiative we've been working on for over 10 years. So that's going to also be part of this project. The scope of this project, we do plan on incorporating a unique technique that is compliant with FAA specifications. Involves crushing and recycling the existing runway concrete in place as a base material to put a nice asphalt overlay on top, and that pavement will be designed to handle the load requirements that are, the larger current corporate aircraft that are using our airport. We call it, our critical aircraft, which is the Gulfstream or the Global Express. So that pavement will be designed for that aircraft. The current runway was designed in 1984 and built in 1985. It was not built for the Gulfstream and the Global Express. And that's one thing this project will address. The deliverables for this project, we're looking at the civil engineer drawings that will be prepared, ready for construction. We are targeting, we have a goal of doing construction in 2026. Another thing that we're going to be doing with this project is a pretty in-depth community outreach program with our tenants and stakeholders. We know that there's going to be some impact in the construction phase, and we want to make sure that we communicate that with our tenants, stakeholders, and work with them along the way. We advertised this design project. We did the RFQ process in February 2023. The selection committee was comprised of airport and engineering staff. We interviewed 2 aviation consultants, and ultimately KSA engineers was selected for the design project. And I do want to point out we do have representatives from KSA here tonight to answer any technical questions you all may have. Funding for the project is going to come from airport funds in AP 2301. We have a little over $1.2 million in the budget. We are looking for an amendment from AP 1201, which is the taxiway relocation project, with a little over $240,000 for total funding need of $1,508,248.52. We are expecting the design portion of this project to take 10 months. And with council's approval tonight, we will begin officially working on that next month. Impacts, we don't really expect too much impact during the design portion of this project. We have quite a bit of surveying that needs to be done, but that'll all be conducted at night with very minimal impact on tenants. We don't really get a whole lot of aircraft operations at night, so that's the ideal time to do things. We know that the impacts are going to be during construction. We don't know exactly what those impacts are going to be. We don't know the timeline. We don't know the lengths just yet. That's going to be determined during the design. But like I said, we're going to be completely transparent and working with our tenants and other stakeholders so that they know exactly the time frame and what those impacts will be. So tonight, we are requesting authorization of a contract with KSA Engineers in the amount of $1,429,248.52 with a authorization of a budget amendment in the amount of $243,248.52 from AP 1201 to AP 2301. And with that, any questions?
Question, William?
The question I ask is certainly not technical.
Okay.
So you don't need to bore anybody with my question. But as I look at this, and I know how well the airport performs as a whole annually, I don't like to think that it's going to be interrupted in any way.
Right.
Have we ever considered a second runway, and that way this would be more fluid, or is that just a ridiculous thought because I'm not a pilot? I don't know.
No, it's not a ridiculous thought. I could say we didn't leave any stone unturned. We looked at a lot of different options. In fact, one of the options that was presented during the master plan process was actually building a west side, because we do need a west side taxiway. Our taxiways are 50 feet. That's all that wide they need to be. Our runway needs, at a minimum, needs to be 100 feet. So the thought was we would build a 100-foot wide temporary runway, switch over to that temporary runway, redo the main runway, and then switch back. The reality was, this was our primary goal for this project. The reality was that was going to cost over $120 million and probably take 25 years to complete. So we did look at it. It just was not feasible for our time frame. Big projects like that can be done at maybe big, huge commercial airports like DFW or George Bush Intercontinental, but for the grant funding that we receive, it just was not realistic for us, but absolutely it was something we considered.
Great answer for the two people that were probably thinking about that question. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Vishal?
Well, William, I was thinking about that too. So now three. Same thought process. Now I heard what you said, but how do we, 30 days is what you're thinking that the construction would take place in 2026 though, right?
Correct.
Are we going to do our best to minimize that as much as possible, obviously?
Right. We're going to be trying to get more of those details during the design, but I can say that the goal will be construction activities 24/7 for that period of time. Whenever we have to start breaking up the main concrete in the runway, that's when the clock starts. We have some estimates. We have an idea of what that's going to look like. We're going to get more down that road during design, but I can say we're going to do everything we can to expedite the process, whether we have day and night crews, 7 days a week. We're looking at potentially having bonuses for the contractor if they can open up on time or earlier to really motivate them to get this project done.
Stuart?
Do we have to reimburse any of our tenants or tenants of our tenants for not being able to use the airport, having to store their planes elsewhere, or not being able to use their plane for 30 days?
Good question. That's something that we are looking at. We have worked with TxDOT and the FAA to look at what have other airports done. Some of the feedback that we've gotten is we don't have to necessarily. The FAA allows an airport to shut down for maintenance-related work, but that doesn't necessarily mean we don't try to work with our tenants. The goal is to give them as much notice as possible that they can potentially relocate temporarily, find a different place temporarily, take vacation for a month, I don't know. But we do want to talk with them, we do want to work with them and look at what those impacts are going to be, so that way we can minimize those impacts and work with them as much as possible. So to answer your question, we don't necessarily have to, but it's something that we can look at. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Question, Mitch. What's the useful life of a hot mix asphalt runway versus the concrete that we have now?
So asphalt's very new to us, just least in the airport. We've looked at the pros and cons of asphalt and concrete. The biggest pro for asphalt is we can actually work on it at night. Even major rehabilitation with asphalt can be done at night. We're targeting probably 15 years to where we have to do a mill and overlay project. We've got a 5-year pavement management cycle that we're going to look at doing, with different crack sealing every 5 years to keep that pavement going as long as possible. But we're tentatively planning on 15-year cycle of having to do some kind of mill and overlay or some kind of project to keep that pavement going as long as possible. The good news is we can do that all at night, though.
Right. Well, and so we got 38 years out of the original concrete runway. And it doesn't sound like we'll get that out of the asphalt, but it won't be as expensive to do an asphalt overlay as
Correct.
it is to grind up the concrete and then use it as a base and then put the asphalt on it.
Right. Part of me wants to wish I could go back in time and wish we did an asphalt runway back in the day. In fact, the vast majority of all single runway airports are asphalt for that reason. It's very difficult to shut down for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months to just do a traditional concrete job. So it's challenging to have a single runway concrete runway.
Motion to approve. Have a second by Kermali. Any other questions? If you vote at this time, please. Thank you, Mitch. Beth.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
And it passes 7-0. Item number 4B, consideration of an action on authorization of a development agreement by and between the City of Sugar Land Redeemer, Presbyterian Church Sugar Land, and Fort Bend County Municipal Utility District number 192. Hey, Ruth.
Hello, I am not Ethan. Ethan is handling some family issues right now, so I will be presenting this item on his behalf. Okay, so I'm actually presenting on the next 2 items in one presentation, so you will have 2 different actions, but I'm going to go ahead and cover all of the information because they're very much intertwined. So it will be the development agreement, then the resolution when you go through that action. So I'll give you a little bit of an overview, some background on the 2 MUDs that have historically been involved, the development agreement, the resolution, some review and approval we've done, and then our recommended actions. So just to give you an overview, what's before you tonight is the proposal for 6.7 acres that's in Sugar Land's ETJ. That is the proposed location of the Redeemer Presbyterian Church. So it's located here. It's in the kind of reddish orange, south of Greatwood. The city limits is here in red. And then you have Fort Bend County MUD 192, which is the Greatwood Lakes subdivision locating here. And so this property is requesting connection to the MUD for utility service to be able to develop their property for a church. So back in 2012, the MUD 106, which was the master MUD for the Greatwood area, granted 300 equivalent single-family connections to Point Greatwood LLC for the benefit of MUD 192 and the development of Greatwood Lakes. Since that time, Greatwood Lakes has determined that it doesn't need all of those connections that were originally allotted, and so they have agreed to transfer 4 of their connections to the church and release their future rights to those connections. Additionally, the Strategic Partnership Agreement, or the SPA, between the city and MUD 192 allows for new developments to be served by the district's utility system, but the city has to consent, and both have to agree to the connection. And then the agreement, development agreement between the city and Greatwood Lakes, as well as the SPA, requires the city to consent to any annexation of land into MUD 192. And so that's really what we're here for tonight. So in January of this year, MUD 192 submitted to the city a petition requesting that the city consent to the annexation of the church's property into the MUD. And so in turn, the city asked that the church enter into a development agreement, essentially to ensure that the property is developed in accordance with their plans and that it be developed in accordance with city standards. And so we also asked that MUD 192 be party to that agreement to document that Greatwood Lakes did not use all of their connections, that the MUD is granting those connections to the church, and that the church understands that it's not the city that's granting the connections, but rather the MUD, and that they're limited to those 4 connections that are being granted. And so then there's the Resolution 2325, which would consent to the annexation of the property into the MUD. And allow for the annexation of that 6.7 acre tract to be annexed into the MUD and be served by the MUD. So we did previously review this with the IG committee last month, and members did not express any concerns with the proposal. The MUD 192 board has also reviewed the development agreement at the beginning of July and approved and signed the development agreement. So with that, we do recommend that you authorize approval of the development agreement between the city, Redeemer, and the MUD. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions, we'll take them as 2 items. So the first item we're going to take is item number B, which is an action on the development agreement by and between the City of Sugar Land, Redeemer Presbyterian Church, and Fort Bend County MUD 192. Do I have a motion? Got a motion by McCutcheon. Do I have a second? Second. Got a second by Lane. You'll vote at this time, please. And it passed 7-0. Thank you, council members. Second item, number 5, ordinances and resolutions. 5A, consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land Resolution number 2325, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, giving its consent for Fort Bend County Municipal Utility District 192 to annex 6.8708 acres of land, 8-acre tract of land as described in Exhibit A, and setting forth other provisions related thereto. Questions? Motion to approve? Motion to approve. Got one by Lane, second. And I've got a second by Kermali. You'll vote this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, council members. Item number 6, closed executive session. Closed executive session is authorized by Chapter 551 Texas Government Code in accordance with 551072, deliberation regarding real property. We're going to have a brief recess, reconvene in the council dining chamber, and we appreciate you attending our city council meeting this evening. We're in recess.